Hello. Hi everyone. Welcome to Guiding Voice podcast series. The Guiding Voice for a better future. This podcast is to help students and young professionals to shape their careers. And we interact with industry leaders to get their insights on during every episode. Thank you for tuning in. And this is Naveen. Today I'm with a special co-host Suresh. Dear listeners, this episode is part of our CXO series, and we are extremely pleased to have one of the senior leaders in the Indian IT industry, Bharat. And we are going to discuss an amazing topic, coaching and growing young leaders.
Bharat Kalyanram is currently working as a Vice President Software Development at Oracle India. In the past, Bharat has worked as CEO in Torquis Lace Advisory. He held senior roles like Chief Delivery Officer, Senior VP and MD, CIO while working with major organizations like Infinite Computer Solutions, CA Technologies, Nest Technologies, Dell, etc. Coming to his education, Bharat did his MBA from University of Louisville. Bharat is passionate about coaching and growing young leaders. Let us hear from the most sought after industry leader.
Hey, thanks a lot, Naveen and Suresh. Really excited about this podcast. And as I was saying earlier, it's always great to make new friends and reconnect with old ones. So Naveen and I worked together many, many years ago when I was CIO at GE. So it's always great after many years to reconnect with good friends. So thanks a lot for the opportunity, guys.
Oh, that's good. But I think it is always good to cherish old memories. So let's get into our conversation. Can you shed some light on your career journey? What it took for you to grow as a successful leader?
All right, sure, I'll do that. I've had a pretty long career, so I certainly don't want to bore your listeners with all the details. But yeah, I started my career as a regular techie in the IT industry. Actually, I started my career even before that, working and selling tea, coffee, and spices for a company that is no longer in existence. It used to be called Brook Bond India Limited. I started my career as a management trainee, and then immediately thereafter got into the information technology industry because I found that selling tea, coffee, and spices wasn't particularly exciting to me. Since then, it's been an amazing journey because I was very early into the IT field in India. That was the time when I think we had barely even scratched the surface in India in 1985-86 of the information technology industry, and it was still extremely nascent. So I've seen the industry actually grow from where we were in the old days where, having 128 megabytes of RAM was considered to be like, wow, to all the way to today where we are now, seamless, compute anywhere, cloud everywhere sort of environments. So it's been a fascinating journey actually through that. Now, in the process, you asked me a question specifically about leadership and my growth. I think there always comes a period, and in my case, that was exactly what happened. I'd been a techie for a very large part of my life at that point. And I came to a junction where I had to make a choice. I thoroughly enjoyed the technical journey. It's been fascinating. I still love technology and enjoy working in those areas. I felt I had to make a conscious choice whether I wanted to grow as a leader in the technology space or whether I wanted to, grow as a leader in the management and the people management space. So I decided to go down the other path, and that's where I am right now. So I try as far as possible. My career since then has always been a melding of technology and people leadership. And I've always enjoyed that because in my mind, technology is less about pure technology and more about the people who actually create and who are behind that technology. So to me, I find that, software development and software engineering is really a people process. Because at the end of the day, your software is only as good as the people who actually work it and who actually create it. Since then, I've really worked on honing my skills and developing my skills in leadership. And it's a lifelong journey. I don't think I've stopped learning, and I will continue to learn. Every day there's a new set of learnings and new instances, new readings. So it's been fascinating. That's really what I want to just say. Keep it very brief. We can go into details as we continue the conversation.
Awesome, Bharat. In fact, we are very happy to know about your incredible journey so far. I'm not just saying it is stopped, right? So it's getting continued. Awesome. And the day we start with coffee, and you started your career, with coffee as well. That's awesome. Awesome. So we'd like to hear your opinion. What is leadership?
Okay. It's interesting. I can talk about serendipity, right? I mean, today here we're having a conversation about leadership, and I just published an article on LinkedIn on leadership, actually. So, in fact, one of my bosses actually told me some time ago, leaders are born, they're not made. And I disagree. I think leadership, just like any other set of competencies, is a set of competencies. It's actually a set of attributes. It's not a job title. I don't care what you're called. I mean, you can be a manager, you can be an individual contributor, you can be a senior executive or whatever. But leadership and leaders are really a set of attributes. So I think to go back some time, there's a little bit of a context here, right? If you look at some of the greatest institutions that develop leadership, one of the institutions that comes to mind right away is the military. It's fascinating how they do it because they've been doing it for centuries now, right? So that should tell you that, leaders are not just born. They're actually made. They can be created.
True.
I've held with that idea for most of my life, and in fact, when I take a lot of pride in growing and developing leaders, and I feel I've done that and contributed that to a number of people that you see around. I've been privileged to work with people like that, and even when Naveen was with me when I was at GE, one of the things we used to do was actually had a very open organization where we had conversations about leadership, where we would just talk like human beings and in the process start learning about it. So some of the attributes that I find that I believe is key to leadership, key to being a successful leader. One of the key things, in my opinion, is openness and transparency. Because unless you are able to be open to influences that come in from outside and you're in a learning mode, only then are you going to be able to take that and translate it. One of the key attributes. Another attribute, and this is very important, I think, is that there's a saying out there. It says, if they work for you, you work for them. So one of the things that you find about great leaders is that while they think differently and they have a different way of looking at it, they always look at the organization and the people they work with first before they think about themselves. And I think that's very different from when you are starting your careers and so on, when you're an individual contributor, for example. You find that, you think about yourself first, then you think about your team, and then you think about the organization. As you grow as a leader, what winds up, and I don't mean just a career path, right? I'm really talking about the growth of a leader comes from the mind. As you start to grow, you start to think about the bigger things first before you think about yourself. I mean, take a look at history. History is littered with, great leaders that we've all taken as role models and so on that we keep thinking of, whether it is Gandhiji, whether it is Martin Luther King or anybody in that context. If you look at it, one of the greatest things they always had was they always thought about everybody else before they thought about themselves. And I truly believe that that's one of the vital skills that a leader always needs to continue to demonstrate. The third thing is, this is arguably one of the most important, surprisingly I will say this, is humility and vulnerability. One of the things when you're a leader is that everybody looks at you. You are somebody's dinner table conversation that day. You are going to be talked about by people who you barely interact with on a day-to-day basis. So which means you have to make yourself very vulnerable and very exposed. So that means you need to be also have a great strength of character and strength of mind to be able to take the good with the bad, because not everybody is going to think about you well. You're going to have critics, you're going to have all of that. So how do you persist with your vision and your growth despite all of these things is one of the key things. And therefore that brings us to this characteristic called humility. I am going to put this out there. Humility is very, very critical, because as a leader, you have to be able to listen and learn and reflect on everything that's coming at you, because the decisions you're going to make, the steps you're going to take today are going to be felt. The impact is going to be felt not immediately. It's usually going to be felt sometime in the future. So it's fascinating, when you think about leadership that way, upends all of our, popular ideas and concepts of leadership. This is what I believe in. Everybody has an opinion on leadership. These are some of the lessons that I've learned in my journey on leadership. I hope that helps.
These are wonderful insights, Bharat. Having observed you directly in the past and passively now by following your LinkedIn posts and all other great articles that you publish from time to time. I'm really curious about your passion for developing leaders, like where it all started.
Okay. Thanks so much for that opening, Naveen. Let's be perfectly honest about this, right? In order to be perfectly honest, you might wind up making some potentially controversial remarks. So, one of the things that I've found in the corporate world is that there is a lack of teaching and there is a lack of learning. In the corporate world, we have a tendency to focus so hard on the bottom line, on the critical areas of the business justification, that in that process, we miss out on the fact that we're actually dealing with people and human beings. I have always believed that the two go hand in hand. You can't look at one without looking at the other. You can't grow a business and you can't have a successful business if you don't take care of your people and enable their success. So in that process, I have always believed that coaching and growing people to be better than what they thought they could be is one of the key things that any executive, any manager, any leader should come to the table. See, to create a better version of myself, I was privileged to have, and I was lucky to have, a few really good mentors in my career and in my life. A few. And believe me, there were very, very few. Barely a handful. And I would like to be able to communicate that out to other people. I've always believed that knowledge is free. And if I don't share my knowledge, then I'm not helping anybody. I may be successful, but if I'm not able to share that success and carry other people along with me in that journey of success, then what am I really making a difference with? So I've always believed that that is the case, and I think that is vital for any leader to do in terms of being able to grow other people. I've always made that a priority. And it's like any school teacher, right? If you think about it, every student in a class is not going to be as successful. But even if one or two or three are able to pick up lessons and pick up learnings, gives me a huge sense of pride, when I see these people grow and be successful and be really, key example right here is you, Naveen. We work very briefly together. But when I follow your career and I see where you're going and what you have accomplished, gives me a huge sense of pride. And it feels great to have been associated with somebody like you. Now, obviously, you had your natural abilities, right? I'm not taking any credit for it. You did it. But the point is, there must have been some influences that rubbed off on you, whether it was part of GE or whether it was part of something else, that enabled your own success, right? And it's that process of growth that I think, as a leader and as an executive, it's a critical part of what I need to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bharat. I would definitely give the credit to you and other leaders at GE who have influenced me, because I've closely observed your growth in terms of where you are going, and at the same time balancing the people management aspect in terms of creating more leaders and all. So I really loved your mantra in order to focus on people and also focus on learning and training. So I'm sure our listeners will draw some cues and follow this as well. So thank you for the wonderful insights.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, Bharat. So the next one, I would like to go. Can you shed some light on coaching leaders, Bharat?
Okay, sure, Suresh. I'm going to tell you a little story here, so just bear with me for a minute. My coaching journey, actually, it wasn't a planned journey, to tell you the truth, right? One of the things I've always, as I've mentioned before, is that I've been passionate about growing people and, enabling people's growth. Let me put it that way. Not growing people, but really being a contributor and an enabler of other people's growth. Now, in that process, I think there were a number of people who felt that I had a lot to contribute. My wife actually has been a big influence in that. So she, a year and a half ago now, she told me, she said, hey, look, have you thought about coaching? Coaching as a calling. Not a profession, but as a calling. You understand the distinction, right? Profession is something that you do to feed your stomach, and I believe calling is something that you do to feed your soul.
Absolutely.
So what I did was I explored this topic, and I enrolled in a course on coaching, with a company called X Monks, who are a franchisee and work with Ericsson Coaching. Ericsson is the world leader in coaching, and they're affiliated and associated with the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation. And I wanted to get an actual certification. I actually wanted to learn what this whole thing was about. And guess what? It's been a completely different journey. When everybody thinks about a coach, one of the things that always comes to mind is mentoring, it's counseling, and so on and so forth. Now, all of these approaches are also good. Don't get me wrong. They're very valuable. But what happens is that many of those are prescriptive. So they're prescriptive. I tell you what you could do, but I'm not allowing you to discover for yourself why and how and what you want to be able to do. Each person's whats, hows, and whys are different, are going to be different from one to the other, right? And that's a process of discovery. It's not a process of prescribing. And I love that about the whole approach to coaching. Because one of the things that has always bugged me is that, why is change, when we implement change, sometimes changes are lasting and sometimes changes are not lasting, right? Positive change, for example. And then the answer came to me that, the reason positive change or changes of any sort do not last is because we always prescribe it. It's a top-down sort of a thing, right? It's an outside-in sort of a thing, I should say. Not a top-down, outside-in. That means there's an outside influence that is forcing us to change. And usually that kind of change doesn't last. Whereas if you do an inside-out, that is, if you start from within, if we all start from within in terms of the change, then that is always lasting. And that comes from a process of discovery. Gandhiji has said this, right? Be the change that you want to see.
Right.
Why did he say that? Because he, among many other people in the world, have realized that true change comes from within. It doesn't come because somebody tells me that I need to change. So hence I felt that coaching as a way to enable young people to discover this potential within themselves was the way I would like to proceed with this. And hence, I think coaching as an approach to developing leaders needs to be explored and needs to be pursued. And that is a way in which you actually develop young people right from a very early age and an early stage in their careers, in their professions and so on, to grow to be a better version of themselves. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right? Each one of us wants to be a better version of ourselves.
And we understand that, your wife played a role of coach in your career and for sure for life as well.
Yeah, it did. Very much so.
Most of the times, we crack jokes, but, apart from the jokes, she played a excellent role.
Oh, she played a key role, and she continues to play a key role in my life.
Awesome.
I think we all do, right? I mean, each one of us who has a spouse or a partner or a significant other. Usually we take a lot of influences from them.
Exactly. You're right. So Bharat, most of us are in senior roles or senior leadership roles that we are playing at our respective work. So how coaching helps the coach in the process?
Fabulous question. Fabulous. My journey so far, one of the key things I've learned is that, I'd like to look at it from the perspective of change. When you are the one implementing a change, usually the change also turns around and, impacts you, yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Every one of my journeys where I've either mentored or interacted with somebody, I've always come away a little changed. Like this interaction you and I are having, we are all having right now, is changing me inside already. I can feel it. I can see it happening in my mind.
Super.
It's that reason why I find it so fascinating when I deal with people. Because every interaction I have with somebody, like yourselves, I come away enriched, right? It puts energy back into me. And that's what I mean. But you have to keep yourself open to those influences. See, very often we've had so many of us, we go through our lives, we work with people, we pursue our professions and so on and so forth. But we don't look at it from the perspective of our own selves, which says that, okay, hey, what am I taking away from it? So there is very little difference between the person who is being coached and the coach themselves. It is just as much a journey for the person being coached as it is a journey for the coach. Because every time there's new learning that comes into process. And that is why one of my key pieces of advice to any young person, anywhere in the world, anywhere on the planet today, is don't stop learning. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. Don't stop learning. You could learn a new hobby. You could learn a new skill. You could learn about people. You could explore 101 topics. And today's world, with between the internet and YouTube and, all of the influences that we have as a result of the internet, unbelievable access to great information and great skills that you can actually pick up and learn. And I don't think, there's no excuse for anybody to not learn. I mean, heck, tomorrow I turn 55 and I'm still enrolling for courses and things because I want to learn new stuff. And that should continue. That's where I think that, a coach, the barrier between a coach and a person being coached is really nothing. Because both are learning in that process. Both are growing in that process. And only then can that interaction truly be successful and truly be something that is transformative. If it is just a transaction, then there's no growth. That's what I think.
It's very inspiring to see that you observe and learn from others till today, no matter how far you have reached in your career. And that's an amazing and wonderful thought. It's all about being open and have listening ears all the way and reflect upon.
Yes.
So thanks for sharing that and being very open. I would like to shift gear and talk about what are the challenges in coaching young leaders, because sometimes there might be expectation mismatch, or maybe you can throw some light on that.
Sure. See, what are some of the motivations of young people, right? If I was just starting off in my career, I could very well turn around to a Bharat. If a Bharat is sitting here giving me advice, I could very well turn around to Bharat and say, Bharat, whatever you're saying is all fine and good. It's okay for you to talk, man. I mean, you made your money, you're senior exec, 35 years. I'm just starting my career. So it's all okay to give me all this philosophy. That's a very fair question. And I think that is where the coach needs to walk a mile in that person's footsteps. See, unless I am able to appreciate what is going through that particular person's mind, what is going on in their journey, there is no way I can make a difference to their lives. So I think walking a mile in somebody else's shoes is a critical part of it. It's a big challenge, right? It's very often that I can sit here like a big jnani and give a lot of gyan. Like, sometimes I'm listening to myself as I'm talking to you guys, and I'm feeling like I'm giving you a lot of gyan. But really, I just want to share. So with young people, what happens is that you have to start appealing to that aspect of themselves that they're going to have to come to terms with, that they're going to have to accept. So for example, a dialogue around coaching dialogue with a young person who is looking to look for guidance in, what they want to do and how they want to do it. One of the key pieces of advice and suggestions that I would like to be able to get that person to recognize is developing competencies. If I speak for myself, I'm able to speak in a very high level and a general tone because I know what it takes to get there. It took me a long time to develop a set of competencies. Unless I get to be good at something. Today, one of the reasons you want to talk to me is because you think I'm good at something, because I can add value to you, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's very important at that stage for you, dealing with young people, is to help them understand the value of gaining competencies. Because only if you have that foundation that you can stand on, can you start to reach for the stars, right? Everybody wants to reach for the stars, but you need a place to stand on, right? So one of the things that comes to my mind is, Archimedes once said, I believe, give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I could change the world, or I can move the world. The same principle holds true for young people. You can change the world, but you need a firm footing to stand on. So my coaching discussion with young people has always been and would always start with that fundamental that, be known for something, your capabilities and competencies that gives you the confidence to be able to stand on and then shift the whole world. I think that's one of the key challenges that you have when you're dealing with having with young people. One of the other things that I've observed, and this is only an observation, not a criticism, is that everybody seems to be in a big hurry for, within quotes, success. Yeah. Don't blame them. I don't blame anybody, right? It's our system that's made us want to be, that defines our own success, within quotes. And it's okay. But one has to look at it from with young people. Young people always have, right? I mean, I've been a young person once too. I'm impatient, right? I want to achieve and I want to move fast. And that can lead to a lot of frustration. And my advice to anybody, to young people at this point is, look, your career is not something that you're going to build in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, right? Always look at it as a continuum. Your career is never going to be a straight line. If it was a straight line, then everybody here would be a genius and, super successful. Materially and every other way. Third piece of advice I'd give anybody is that success is not just material. Success is about being successful in what you consider to be life. Trust me, at some point you will turn around and you may turn around and ask yourself the question that, okay, what am I doing this for? And you must ask yourself that question periodically. Any one of us should ask that question of ourselves periodically. And why am I doing what I'm doing? It's a good checkpoint. And that would be, some of the challenges I think we will face when we deal with young people. It requires a lot of patience. We have a 25-year-old son, and we've seen him grow. And there is, the impatience of youth, the impetuosity of youth. That's a great thing, but it requires channelization. If it can be channeled and focused, then boy, I tell you, young people are absolutely kick-ass. I love dealing with young people because of that energy, that passion, the desire to do great things, and the ability to dream, I think are absolutely terrific. And we ought to encourage and deal and help young people actually accomplish whatever it is that they desire. That's my take.
Yeah. So these are all like pearls of wisdom, I would say. And just to tie back to the point that you mentioned about career is not a straight line and you'll come across certain ups and downs, right? So it is a case where we have to be prepared to deal with the crisis, say given the pandemic like this and
Yeah.
all. So how do we coach the young generation to be able to handle the crisis effectively?
Beautiful question, man. Beautiful question. Because, this is really real. And, every day I hear news about jobs, the economy not being good, the job situation not being good. And young people, I'm telling you, I feel so terrible that young people who are graduating, just getting out of school and college, are coming into this situation where, the economy sucks, right? Jobs are disappearing. New jobs cannot be created or are not being created. What's a young person to do at this point? So the only thing I can say to young people, and we're living in unprecedented times. I have not seen anything like this in my lifetime, and I don't think any of us have. So my only thing to young people at this point is we can only take a look at where I'm going to be able to find the opportunities. So one of the key things I would look at and I would request young people to think about is there a way I can leverage the world of technology right now in order to be able to deliver what I can to customers, to people, to my workplace? And let me expand on this a little bit. I may be oversimplifying it, but here's the thing. Recently, I started working with a physical trainer. Mm-hmm. I've been wanting to get back into shape. I've, spent a lot of my life doing this stuff, and I have certain goals, physical goals that I want to accomplish. For example, I want to be able to run a marathon. I've never done a marathon. I'd like to do a triathlon. So I need to get physically fit in order to do it. Interestingly, I've got a physical trainer, but guess what? And I feel very insecure about going back to a gym, to tell you the truth, right? Because gyms are classic places where the damn organism is going to show up, and I don't want to get sick. So I've got a physical trainer who lives in Hyderabad, and I live in Bangalore, and we're using Zoom to be able to, and he uses Zoom to train me. What I'm trying to get at here is that we need to be able to find creative ways in which we can make things work.
Exactly.
We're going to a largely even more virtual world. Is there a way in which I, as a young person who's graduated today, can add value to somebody who is to an organization or my own business as an entrepreneur or something like that in a virtual world? That's something that, I think young people need to look at. The second thing I think young people need to look at is use this as an opportunity to learn, because learning is never going to end. It's a great place to start. In fact, one of the pieces of advice I've given our son is also the same thing. He's getting ready to graduate right now. And I told him, I said, look, this is a fantastic opportunity. Rather than getting out into trying to find a job and so on, continue your studies. Give it time so that you're able to digest it. The third piece of advice, and this is a little bit of philosophy here, is that this too shall pass. We are going to learn how to live in a new normal. All of us will. Workplaces may be shut down right now, but workplaces will start looking at alternatives. Things are going to change. Who ever thought? Naveen, you remember, right? Back in the day when we were at GE in the 90s and early 2000s. Thinking about working from home was practically nothing. We could only do support operations, and bandwidth was limited, and so on and so forth. Today, we've got all the capabilities to work from anywhere. So I think organizations are going to wake up to it and are already woken up to it, as a matter of fact, to be able to do very complex things with people being geographically and physically separate. So this too shall pass. And what I mean by that is organizations are going to start to realize that in this new normal, we are going to have to find other ways in which we can make this work. So I believe the job cycles and job creation is going to come back up. Yes, this is a tough time for anybody, but don't lose heart. Have that spirit of exploration. Continue to persist with that spirit of adventure and keep persisting. Don't give up. I know it's easy to say don't give up. I've been there. I've been in situations where I've had, I started my career in information technology with 10 rupees in my pocket, and I didn't know where my next meal was going to come from. I got a break, and I've never looked back. So it is possible. And last piece of advice for anybody here, always look at somebody else that you see out there who doesn't have what you have in your hand. There are so many millions of people in our own country who don't have what we have. So feel better about yourself. Stay positive, stay calm, and don't hesitate to ask for help. The piece that I want to say to everybody else out there who's got a job, who's got a career, who's got good cash flow coming in and so on, and a decent income coming in, please help. There are going to be a lot of people reaching out to you for help. My plea to everybody here is all of us who are in a better position must reach out and help somebody who is not in that good a position. Only if we do that will the economy and everything rise, because the economy has got nothing to do with the government. The government is us. Unless we are able to do something about it, government can't do anything. So let's get out there and help people.
Very, very encouraging, Bharat. There is no doubt about it. So, by understanding your passion on coaching the young leaders, what are various leadership skills that were most difficult to develop?
Wow. For me personally, because of my own personality, I would say, was developing my skill was trying to learn to be patient and to be able to listen and reflect. See, in my case at least, what I found was I had a passion for action. Always. There's always, let's go. Let's get it done. Let's just do it. And we'll figure out. If we make mistakes along the way, we'll figure out a way to fix it. But just keep moving. I realized at some point that, it may be okay for me, but for everybody else who's with me, that may not be the way that they work or they prefer to work. So then I had to find a way to actually curb my natural instincts, right? And start to carry people along. Let me give you an example, right? Let's say I have an idea about something. Could be anything. A new product, a new initiative, whatever it is. Now, I've already clarified it in my own head that this is what needs to be done. But the people who are with me have not yet come to that place that I've already reached, right?
Yep.
So I have to literally, instead of being impatient at that time, I need to be able to rewind a little bit and show people, carry people along and say, hey, here's the path. Here's what we're thinking of. And by doing this, we're going to get there. So very often a leader has to keep pace and enable his people first before you can actually start seeing that change. So for me personally, that was a tough lesson. I made a lot of mistakes. Believe me, I got whacked. I got negative feedback. But the point is, you have to be willing to take that. If you want to be a leader, you're going to have to take the good with the bad. Not everybody is going to like what you do. And you got to be open to feedback from everywhere. Everywhere, right? So you got to be available. That's why 360 becomes such a critical component. And I don't mean 360-degree feedback as a tool, but I'm talking about it as an informal culture of constantly pulsing people. So one of the things that I've always learned to do is when I'm making a decision to go out there and test it out on a few people and say, hey guys, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? What's your opinion? How would you feel if we were to think about something? And many of the ideas in that case, right, get shot down simply because of the fact you realize that somebody else is thinking of something that you've not thought of. So the willingness to ask for feedback and be courageous about it and not be afraid to receive that feedback is a critical skill. So that was something that, took me some time to learn and took me some time to accept.
I'm loving this conversation. Like, you're speaking from your heart.
Yep.
Like everything is very candid and it takes immense courage to be open, and I really appreciate all the thoughts coming through and sharing so openly with our listeners and ourselves. I'm feeling very glad to be connected with you after a long time. So one final question, Bharat.
Sure, Navi.
Do you recommend any great books which do you think are a must read for someone to succeed in leadership?
Oh boy, now I'm sitting in my library.
No wonder.
You're asking me for one book. I would not suggest any one book. I think as you grow, you have to keep yourself open to multiple different influences. Right? I mean, in my career, there have been an enormous number of books that have helped me. Thinkers who have helped me that I've looked to and looked from. And I don't know why, but I love stories. I've always found myself fascinated by history, and I love to read history from the perspective of learning from history. So if you take a look at many of the role models that people talk about and have, when we think about them, I think it's always good to read about how other people thought, how some of the great people thought. Everybody would consider great, right? Whether it was a name that comes to mind again and again, as far as India is concerned, at least, is Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekananda. All great thinkers. It may not be management, it may not be, any of those topics, but I think, those are influences that influence your thought to get to a higher frequency. Thinking needs to get to a higher frequency. Only then can you actually grow, right? And I don't mean personal growth alone. And for an organization to grow, you can't do the same thing that you did yesterday. If you want to grow, you're going to have to find new things to grow. A plant that is growing is not looking back at, okay, yesterday I was a seed, so how do I stay a seed? That plant is saying, okay, hey, I want to become a tree. So to become a tree, you can't think like a seed. You have to start thinking like a tree. So for that, my advice to anybody, don't stop reading. Don't stop learning. Definitely look at some great influences and influencers. Historically, a good one that comes to mind is, somebody like Stephen Covey, Seven Habits. I think that's
Seven Habits.
Very, very relevant. Definitely something that people should look at and read. Second book that I would recommend for anybody would be Good to Great, because it just opens up your mind to how you can truly aspire to great as a corporation in the business world. And then I would definitely suggest that people should read stories of great people, Alexander
Yeah.
the Great.
Mhm.
He did. What was his vision? Because the thing is about their visions, right? Their visions were huge, massive vision. How did they get there? And how were they able to motivate people to be able to do these great things? So definitely I would read, people like Mahatma Gandhi, what happened, some of the history of the freedom struggle. Those are all very inspiring things. Oh yeah, one fantastic book. It's a pretty thick read. Is Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, a person who was incarcerated for 20 plus years in a 6 foot by 8 foot cell, and his growth, even though he was in prison, as a human being and becoming such a great leader, is an amazing story. It has all the hallmarks of, persistence, perseverance, passion, all of those qualities, in one person. Long Walk to Freedom is the title of the book. It's written by Nelson Mandela himself. Phenomenal. Must read.
Sure, definitely. Thanks for those titles, Bharat. Definitely, I'm going to grab the Nelson Mandela copy for sure.
Definitely. Great guys. Absolutely. Well, I'm having so much fun, guys. I am absolutely having so much fun. Thank you for
Like we
having me on this show. Actually, it's only when we start talking to other people that we start to actually find some more clarity in our own thing. Very often, you have to test your ideas out against other people and other people's thoughts. So sometimes, in just articulating it, right, you start to listen to yourself, and that process of refining starts to emerge. So I really appreciate it, and I'm very grateful that
Thank you so much,
you guys
Bharat.
got me on this show, and I'm excited to see your progress. Very excited. Very, very excited for you guys. And do feel free. Let me know how I can help anyway.
Super.
Definitely, Bharat. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bharat, for accepting our invitation despite other commitments and sharing your thoughts and experiences.
Sure.
It was great. Great. In fact, I think one of the memorable conversations that we have in Guiding Voice, probably. Naveen,
Yeah.
correct me, okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This will be remain epic
Yeah.
episode for sure.
A great
Thank you so
conversation
much.
on the most useful topic and coaching growing young leaders. Thank you so much, Bharat.
Thank you very much. And I'm so happy that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking with you guys. So thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Bharat.
Dear listeners, to know more about our speaker and the content, visit or follow us on social media. We are available on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and also on YouTube. Just search for The Guiding Voice and then follow, like, subscribe to us, and also share within your network. Also, feel free to email us and we'll be happy to collaborate with you always.
All right, so it brings us to the trivia segment of today's episode. And do you know today's trivia is about currency? Do you know that 92% of the world's currency is digital? It's a mind-blowing fact, which means most of the money that we earn, transact with, use to buy goods and services, and so on and so forth, exists only on computers and hard drives. Banks also store electronically, and the 92% includes all kind of transactions done through credit card, debit card transactions, wire transfers, etc. And only about 8% of the currency globally is physical money, and all the black money piles from within this 8%. So this is a fair estimate that economists seem to agree on, though. Not sure if it is really exact figure, but this low percentage seems surprising. However, it makes sense considering that majority of the transactions are done electronically. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Alright, so thank you for listening. There is more in store, folks. Have a wonderful time. Take care and be safe.